Hi everybody, this is Kelly. Just wanted to take a minute to make a quick video for you about the information as it pertains to the lesson plan project. This is one of the major projects for the class, and it's the one where I find students have the most questions typically. And with this being an online course and not having the platform to ask as many questions, or maybe not even know what questions to ask, I thought it'd be good to put together a little video that might further explain my expectations on the lesson plan. So the first thing that I want to direct you to is to the major projects module on your Canvas site. You'll notice that there are several things as it pertains to the lesson plan. There is the required lesson plan template. This is the MOPTA template that you're required to use. Information on the DOK, which you should have in your lesson plan book from Foundations of Education, but just a little recap on that in case you need a refresher. I also have a Madeline Hunter lesson plan format because some people find that it's easier to build their lesson plan in the Madeline Hunter format and then transfer the information to MOPTA, which I'm totally fine to do. And then I also have a discussion board here. If you want to connect with other students to discuss the lesson plans, you're welcome to do that. And then obviously the submission link. So let's talk about each one of those things individually. The first thing that I want to talk about is let's talk about the Madeline Hunter lesson plan format. So in here, I've just scanned in for you the basics of this lesson plan format, and it's just a more traditional method than the MOPTA. And you will find the major components: the anticipatory set, objectives, instructional input, modeling, checking for understanding, guided practice, and then independent practice, in a general summary of those. Like I said before, if you want to build your lesson plan with those major components and then you can input them into the MOPTA format, that might be a nice stepping stone for you. So let's talk about the MOPTA format here. So in this section here, you're going to download this template, and then you're going to delete out a lot of the information that I have added in here because it's just to guide you in putting your information together. So for example, here, you're going to put in the grade level and the subject and the length of the lesson, but this is my directions where it says this is one lesson plan, not a unit. Delete that out. Just highlight it and delete it out so that it's not in there, and then it makes your lesson plan look a little bit more polished. So to go to that point, this is one lesson plan. I'm not looking for an entire unit here. I'm looking for one plan, one activity that the students would do, one lesson. So don't overthink it. Don't make it more complicated than it has to be. The first section on this template is for the standards. This refers to the Missouri Learning Standards, and I have a link here where you can find them, and I've given you the example of exactly how to write those out. You need at least 2 standards in this section. So once again, you're going to delete my directions out and type in your own information right there in the template. The next section is for learning objectives and goals. By now, you probably know I'm an absolute stickler about objectives. I think weak objectives make for weak expectations, make for weak production from your students. So I believe in having strong objectives. In this section, you need 2 to 3 learning objectives, and remember, they must start with the students will be able to. That is a key component of writing a good objective. Make sure all of your objectives are measurable. It says here to consider your DOK levels. So that's where this quick reference to the various levels of DOK, depth of knowledge, comes into play. And I also like to point out in this here that this chart here has some great keywords for writing those objectives. The students will be able to identify, memorize, recognize, categorize, assess, analyze. Those are key words. And when you say the students will be able to, that next word is so critical. So please consider consulting this chart when you're putting together your objectives. So once again, delete out my verbiage, put yours in there, and it'll be more professional. So the assessment section, it might be more advantageous for you to complete the rest of the lesson plan and then come back in and put your assessments in here. But basically, you need at least 3 assessments. What are you going to do before the lesson, during the lesson, and after the lesson to assess the student's knowledge at all of those times? So if you're following the Madeline Hunter format, this is where you're going to put in your anticipatory set, your checking for understanding, guided practice, independent practice. And you're going to see those kind of tips throughout this template where I'm telling you about how it relates to the Madeline Hunter. But make sure that you have all 3 of those in the assessment section. The lesson structure and procedure is probably the most important section of the lesson plan. Nearly everything, even if it's in all the other sections, it has to be in this section too. So this section should be so detailed that if I was your substitute teacher, I could follow the directions in your absence. I suggest you put this in either a numbered list or a bulleted list or a list of some sort, because it's far easier to follow those types of directions than bulk paragraphs. There is never too many details in this section. So let's just jump back and say that up here in the assessment section, you told me you were going to do an anticipatory set where you were going to evaluate their prior knowledge. Well, that has to be in the lesson structure and procedures also. Every assessment that you did up here should also be in this section, because this is identifying what the assessments are, and this is telling me how it fits into the lesson. So you're going to find that in the lesson structure and procedure, it's going to have a lot of the information that's in the other sections. In the instructional strategies, this is where you're going to tell me what methods you will use to teach the material. Okay, this is how you're going to teach. So are you going to use summarizing, note-taking, lecture, cooperative learning? What are your teaching strategies? A lot of people want to tell me in this section what the students are going to do. What are you doing? What are your strategies that you're using to teach? Then in this next section, this is your learning activities. This is what the students are doing. What activities are the students going to participate in? So that's the difference there. The resource and material section, any material or resource that you're using. If you're using crayons, they should be in here. If you're using tablets or iPods or iPads or computers, smartboard, printers, construction paper, markers, pencils. If there's a website that you're using, it should be in here. If you're using Microsoft Word, it should be here. So any resources and materials that you're using in your lesson plan. Technology, this should be, once again, a list of any technology that you're using. And this may be a repeat of the resources and materials. Differentiation, accommodations, modification, increase in rigor. You've probably seen this in other classes where they have a different level of expectation. I'm okay with anything that you want to include here. So if you have a desire to work with students that are visually impaired and you want to put accommodations in here for visually impaired students, that's great. Or students with autism, or students with hearing impairments, anything that you want to put in here. But my minimum requirements are how are you going to help students who are performing above grade level and below grade level. Anything that you want to put in addition to that is fine, but that's the minimum. Classroom management section. So this is really critical, and what I find here is that a lot of students want to put in their rules. Well, this isn't your classroom rules. This is what strategies are you going to use to enforce the rules. So are you going to walk around the classroom and monitor them while they're working? Are you going to provide positive reinforcement for students who are performing as you expected? Are you going to ask all of the students to make a certain motion or gesture when they're finished, such as raising their hand or standing up and pushing their chair in? What types of things are you going to expect the students to do so that you can keep the classroom managed and the lesson flowing? The extension section. So this is, how are we going to extend the information that they've learned into something else? And a lot of times this is, how are they going to take the information that they've learned and use it differently? So if today we've learned how to add 2-digit numbers, are we tomorrow going to read some word problems that have us adding 2-digit numbers? How are we going to extend their learning of that concept? And then the follow-up is similar to that, but this is how are we going to continue to help them do that? So if we added 2-digit numbers on Tuesday, and for the extension, we were putting those 2-digit numbers with word problems, will we do a follow-up where the students are writing their own word problems with 2-digit numbers? So how are we going to continue to improve their knowledge of that? Or maybe are we moving to 3-digit numbers? And last but not least, the additional information section. This just gives you an opportunity to put anything else that might not have been covered by any of the other sections. So once again, I hope that this video has kind of helped you to know a little bit more about my expectation for the lesson plan. As always, if you have any questions at all, you're welcome to ask at any time. I'm always happy to help you. Learning to write lesson plans is such a key component of your pursuit to be a future educator, so it's really important that you take this assignment seriously and put your best foot forward. Hope you all have a fabulous lesson plan, and I can't wait to read them.